Etching is actually one of the most ancient forms of printmaking, and it's quite interesting for me as a contemporary artist to be working with it today. I was first introduced to etching by my lecturers in college way back in the 70s, which probably isn't that long ago in the terms of etching history. Etching is a very ancient process, and it was originally discovered in the Middle Ages when knights going into battle would have their armour decorated with designs, which they discovered, although that you could have some guy engrave the lines with a tool, they found that it was actually easier if you masked the steel with wax, drew through with a needle, and then immersed the steel in acid. They found that the acid was able to etch the steel in a way that was more delicate and more spontaneous than with engraving. Someone somewhere along the line realized that if you impressed paper under pressure against the engraved marks, if the marks were inked up, then you could actually make a print. And so this was technologically quite a serious breakthrough for mankind, because all of a sudden people were able to reproduce drawings. I have here the daisies that I'm working on and a piano. The piano is actually finished and it's ready to print as the basis for my process. So I thought it'd be great to just show you how I actually work on the plate initially, to show you how loose and how spontaneous the whole process is. Whenever I start a piece, it's always very spontaneous. So since I've got some sunflowers, daisies, whatever here, I think I'm going to make a pair to go with this piece, and it's going to be a couple of poppies. So I just start the piece very loosely, like this. One of the things I like particularly about the etching process is that it's not predictable. With a painting, every mark you put down is the mark that you'll result, if you put red down, it comes out as red. But with etching, you start with something, and by the time it's gone in the acid and come out, it could be quite different. Also, another thing that I like is that although I paint the images, these poppies are looking to the left of the plate, but when they're printed, they'll actually be looking in the opposite direction because the prints inside out. So as you can see, it's a very spontaneous, very loose process, and that's how I communicate freedom, happiness in my work. I like my work to speak about the cycles of life. So we have the bud coming up here, which is symbolic of something new, something about to happen. Then the flowers in sort of the full-blown relationship, if you like, and then the seed heads kind of, there's a few seeds coming off there, showing the next level. Once I have this piece, I then put this is immersed into a bath of acid, which then the acid actually etches away at all the copper apart from where the marks are. And that is where we get the name etching, because it's based on the Italian word to eat. So it means that the acid eats the copper. And so the result is that when all this is wiped away with terps, you end up with these brush marks being left as white. And so when this is printed through the press, you have dark blue marks here. And so I end up with a blue and white print, which is then hand-coloured. The process of printing is quite labour-intensive. I have a very good team of very well-trained technicians who are able to ink these plates up by hand, wipe the ink off in a very special, sensitive way that we use with rags, and then print it through the press. Now, the press that we use, although it's a modern press, it's actually based exactly on the same kind of presses that Rembrandt and Dürer would have used. The only difference is, like 400 years ago, they were made of wood, and now they're made of metal. But the process is exactly the same. You can see the paper peels off the plate, and you can see an impression in the paper where the copper plate has been compressed into the paper, and the ink has been transferred from the plate to the paper. And that's a moment for me which is very ripe with possibilities, because you then actually see your finished work coming off. I have a team of very highly trained hand colorists who then work to my master. First of all, what they do is they work with acrylic inks, and they paint animals, birds, musical instruments, abstract pieces, Really, to me, it's like an extravagance of colour, and I don't limit myself just to flowers. I just paint all sorts of things. And then once the colour is dry, I've devised a method of laying gold leaf onto the piece. We do that with a latex-based gold size, which is like a transparent glue that you paint onto the piece, and when it's dry, it's sticky. So we can lay down gold foil on top of the size, then brush it away gently with a brush. And what happens is that you're left with a beautiful layer of gold, just highlighting the petals or giving some emphasis somewhere. And then finally, it's finished off with pastel. We go into the dark areas of the and paint over them with pastel. And so in the end, the finished piece ends up with colour which is transparent, where they've painted the acrylic ink, colour which is opaque with the pastel, and reflected light with the gold. In its basic form, etching hasn't really changed at all.